All right, are we in?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can see you.
All right, we are live. I am running the show here, and I've never done it like this live, so bear with us. I have the wrong background. We're gonna rock and roll with it. I'm trying to find a basic background here. All right, there we go. There we go. All right, welcome in to On the Beat. I'm your host, Ross Martin. Tommy Ashley is out with an upper body. John Bowman, we knew John wasn't going to be here. We learned last minute Tommy wasn't going to be able to go. So right now it's me and Adam Smith, Inside Carolina's lead beat writer, and we're going to hopefully get a special guest here in a bit that will make this a great show. Obviously, a lot of basketball today, tonight, coming off UNC's 65-64 loss to Pitt. And then Duke coming up right around the corner. Duke game on Saturday. We have interviews and press conferences tomorrow. We're deep in it right now. Adam, what's going on, man?
Ross, first of all, thank you for all your efforts getting this thing off the ground. That was pretty funny when you said Tommy had an upper body, because he's a late scratch, I think you would say. And upper body is correct. But, just sitting here, we're coming off the Pitt game last night, and then here comes Duke. So I don't know what you thought about it, Ross. I don't know. I've reading some of the comments over here. I think Sean said he was pretty pissed. I don't know why I expected UNC to win that game by I expected them to cover last night. I think they were an 8.5, 9-point favorite. I thought just with the way that things went at Pitt right before New Year's, and I felt like UNC had been playing better. I thought they would get Pitt, in the Dean Dome and have a nice effort, especially leading into Duke. But I was wrong about that.
Yeah. What do you think was the main issue with UNC last night? Why do you think – hang on. Let's add in Sherrell here. He's in here. Let's bring on Sherrell before we get into the talk here. Introducing Sherrell McMillian, UNC's recruiting guy, and obviously does a lot of stuff on the team as well. Here we go.
Yes.
All right. Sherrell's here.
Hey, what's up?
The OG.
It's your first podcast with Sherrell, Adam?
I think so.
It is.
Maybe. I've watched plenty.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah.
Yeah, Sherrell, get ready to carry us. So I hope you're stretched out and ready to go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get right into it. We're just about to get into the Pitt game. So Adam, what do you think was the main issue with UNC? First of all, are you concerned at all with that loss? Like you said, you thought UNC would win by a lot, and obviously you're wrong there. But poor performances by RJ. I thought Armando wasn't by far didn't play his best. Caleb was okay. I thought he was really good at times. Are you concerned? Should UNC fans be concerned? What's your major takeaway?
I mean, yes, I'm concerned, to be honest with you. There's certainly it's February 2nd. It's Groundhog Day. I mean, it's not like this team is in dire straits, but I just I think there was a lot to be concerned about. I do think it is an experienced, hard-nosed team that wants to make it a street fight and will try to punk you down. I think Pete Nance told us last night they talk more than anybody he's seen in the ACC so far. But yeah, I mean, I thought RJ Davis, how much is that eye affecting him? He's got a black eye. He's got that index finger on his right hand taped again, the one that he dislocated going into the season. And he obviously had a slow start before he really hit a nice stretch here. How much is what he's dealing with affecting him? I would have loved to talk to him last night. He was not available for post-game interviews. The way Pitt crowded Armando, obviously everybody doubles him, but there was another way where they doubled and also sort of cut off everything. They sort of packed it around him. I wonder if that's sort of a recipe for other teams to follow. I think there was a lot to be concerned about. UNC hadn't lost at home, and and this was, what's the number? I counted it up the other day. I think this is the 5th loss Carolina has had this season where they led by at least 6 points in the second half, where they had at least a 2-possession lead. So, yeah, I thought it was pretty alarming.
It is concerning. I think you put that in your story, your sidebar, that this veteran team is getting these leads and they're getting them in the second half and they're letting it slip away. They're losing in the final seconds. So they had the ball. They've lost a lot of close games, which shouldn't happen for a veteran team. Sherrell, the Pitt game, what was your major takeaway from that game? Are you concerned? Should UNC fans be concerned? Kind of open field for you here.
Yeah, absolutely. You should be concerned. I don't know how you wouldn't be. This is pretty much a repeat of exactly where they were almost to the day last year. And no one in their right mind thought at this point last year that that team was going to go to the Final Four. I think me and Joey were on the podcast after their loss at Pitt at home, and we said, why pay attention to this team? Because they're never going to win anything of consequence. So I think personally, I'm trying to learn a lesson from that. You kind of never say never. But if you look at the body of evidence from this season, it doesn't suggest that this team has some kind of, switch to flip, which I think might have been probably the problem, that they thought they could do that. There's still time. They have plenty of opportunities. Like Adam wrote, that, the Duke game coming up, they have to get over this loss. And then like Greg wrote that they've got a lot of potential Q1 wins on the way. But you got to start stacking these wins together, and it doesn't get any easier on the schedule. So absolutely. Anyone who's not concerned, I'd love to know why you're not concerned.
Right.
So what concerns you, Sherrell? Like, what stands out about this team in particular that move your mic a little more. It's still like kind of hitting up there. Yeah, keep going out. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's good. We can still hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. What concerns you in particular? Like, what about that loss and in the game concerns you about this team now, February 2nd, heading into the stretch here?
Yeah, I think it's what Adam just said about the second half leads and the inability for a veteran team, the most veteran team in Carolina history, a starting five who has started almost 500 combined games in college basketball, that they cannot hold on to second half leads. That is the most troubling. It's the most puzzling. It's the thing that frankly doesn't make a ton of sense, considering so many big games that they played in last year. And then even Armando Bacot, just look back to his freshman and sophomore year. He played a lot, and they played in some big games, even though UNC wasn't, a top tier team. So you would think that all that experience, they wouldn't do some of the, let's be nice, some of the things that are questionable towards the end of the game. Like last night, Armando's not the only one who can call timeout, in that situation when he has the ball double teamed and UNC's up 1 with a few seconds left. Anyone else on the court can call a timeout. So it's like, where's that awareness from, these guys who have played so much? We talked about all offseason how experience was going to be one of the reasons that this team was really good, and you want experience playing in college basketball, but it doesn't seem like Carolina's getting the benefit of all that experience right now. That's the most surprising, shocking, puzzling thing to me.
Yeah.
I think Thomas Jansen point in the chat over here. Sorry to cut you off, Ross, about one of the ways you can pack in Armando is because of Leaky. Think about and I'm not in any way trying to like point the finger at Leaky here, but think about how many times he is so open there on those corner threes. Gosh, RJ last night, if he just makes 1 or 2 of those shots he normally makes, I think it was 0 of 6 from 3 and like 3 of 15 from the field. It's a different game, but it's someone made a good point last night, Ross. I didn't know if you picked up on it, where it seems like UNC never seems to get Armando, Caleb, and RJ playing great at the same time. Did you guys heard that, right?
Yeah. CL was asking those questions after the game, and so we got some of those answers from. It's a good point. We haven't had a game where it's like high double figure or high like 16, 17 points to 20 points from Caleb, RJ, and Armando, which is obviously the 3 main scorers for UNC. And it's a great point about Leaky, and to a certain extent, Pete Nance, like those guys have to hit threes when they're open for this team to be super successful. And RJ last night missed 6 threes. Caleb, he always misses a lot of threes because he takes a bunch. Caleb was 4 for 11. It's an easy excuse, but they're missing the guy in the corner that can hit the 3. That was what Brady Manick was last year. That allowed Armando Bacot to be so dominant. Whatever Leaky, he brings so much on defense and X factor and rebounding from his position, ball handling. He is just at times non-existent on offense. And we have him out there with Seth Trimble. I mean, there's just no shooters out there. I think it's really affecting this team. And that's what allows a team to double team and even triple team Armando, which we saw some last night. And he really struggled with that. He's been pretty good through double teams. But last night he definitely struggled. Sherrell, your kind of take on that and kind of how UNC's lacking that part of the offense, the 3-point shooter. It's a little bit different from what they had last year, or at least they had in the second half of last season.
A lot of the shots too, it's not like they're contested or they're bad shots. They're just missing them. So I guess if there is some hope moving forward, because they haven't been bad offensively, but I think they're going to have to really improve offensively because now teams are going to say, okay, the players who maybe were hitting shots early in the season aren't hitting them like they were. So we're going to double, as you said, Ross, or a triple team Baycott and see what happens. And, kind of like when you have a quarterback, you face a team who has a really good running game, you're going to say, okay, quarterback, we'll make you beat us. We're going to put 8 in the box. And if you can throw for 300 yards, great, you beat us, fine. That's kind of what teams are doing now with Baycott. And I think it doesn't have to always be 3-pointers. Like, I think one thing Leaky can do when he's that wide open, he can drive a little bit and they'll respect him, I think, for 12 or 13 or 14 feet. I think they'll respect him. And then, that's when you can drop off passes to Baycott, get to the rim, cut. So there are things they can do to mitigate maybe not shooting well. But they're going to have RJ and Caleb shooting well at the same time at some point to really do anything the rest of the season because there just aren't any other options on the team.
I have always wondered how this is great for me to say, right? Division I athlete, not at all. I always wondered how Leaky hasn't developed more at that size, 6'8", and his athleticism and his length, more of sort of a slashing game where he can get to the cup and finish, or just get in the paint, pull up, and hit an 8 to 10 foot jumper. I don't know why that has never happened for Leaky. It seems like with his gifts and his abilities, he's obviously great at the things he does. Why that, the little in between game, the pull up game, and the finishing. I think he can finish over people. I don't know why that's never sort of developed for him, for lack of a better word. Just never happened.
So do you have any insight on that, Sherrell?
It seems like it's kind of the same deal with the team, right? Like, it's just he can do it sometimes, but you just can't do it every time. Part of it's just his mindset. He's not a guy who is going to go out and get 20 or 25 points. Right. It's just it's just not. He's never going to be that guy. Never has been that guy. But I think it's just being consistent and being mentally tough enough and disciplined enough to say, okay, this is my time. I've got a 6'2" guy on me. Let me go to the rim. And I think sometimes that's just hard to do when you're playing 40 minutes and you have the opposing wing or the best offensive player from the other team. Sometimes I think that gets lost. So, he's developed some, but I think he kind of, the famous saying, he is what he is. He is. And I think it's just on the coaching staff to try to make sure they put him in the best situation to help the team. And him in the corner and taking threes is not the best situation to help the team. So they have to figure out a workaround for that. In my mind.
They need Kerwin Walton back there. Yeah, Adam, I was sitting next to you last night, and I looked at you. It was like, man, Leaky has not gotten better offensively in the last 4 years. I think he missed a mid-range jumper, drove and missed it. And it's just like, man, he really hasn't developed offensively. We don't need to bang on him too much. But, yeah, if he's not hitting threes, I think he's best when he drives and he gets to the rim and then he can get an offensive rebound. That's when he's the best. It's just he doesn't bring that aggressiveness a lot. And like you said, like that's just not his mentality. He's had to defer – he has never been the first, second, third, or fourth option ever in his career. As a freshman, he was there with Nasir and Kobe White, and he's always and Cole Anthony. He's always played with players who've dominated the ball, and so he's always been kind of the fifth option on offense and a defensive stopper. And so he doesn't have that in his bag to be an aggressive scorer. But you just think sometimes he should be with this because he's 6'8", he's strong, he's built, he's long. So you switch from that.
I thought last year, Ross, just to finish that point on Leaky, as we've been talking about it, I was thinking about last year, I felt like he facilitated more. And I think that was a product of having better spacing and ball movement with the personnel that they had out there. But I think there was some Kirshner stat last year about what, how he is with the Nuggets, like some Carolina's record when Leaky had 3 or more assists. And also Leaky's assist to turnover ratio was just stellar. I don't have those numbers right before me, but they were great. And I felt like I don't know. I just felt like he had, not that he's making bad decisions, but I felt like he, initiated some offense last year more. He would find, Brady Manick was a great cutter. I can remember some cuts where he would find Manick, with a pass. And he also found Armando for dunks and things like that when they got hot in the second half of the year. I just felt like, I don't know. I don't know what Leaky's assist numbers are. I don't think they're good. I don't even know if he's averaging 1 a game, but I felt like he was setting people up more last year, just to sort of finish the Leaky thought.
Well, last night he had 0 assists,
Okay.
2 points, 9 rebounds. You know, he's good for a good amount of rebounds. 0 assists in 30 minutes, 1 turnover, 1 block. This ends the Leaky portion of the show. A question here about, and also we haven't talked to Leaky much. He has not been coming out for interviews as much, and it's, you know, he's not one of the top players you ask for, but we really haven't gotten him because he really hasn't had that many big games. Usually the top scorers come out and talk to us. You usually always get Nance and Baycott, it seems, and Caleb. We did not get RJ last night. You know, and we want to ask about his finger. There's a question here about RJ's finger. I'm trying to find it, but you know, he was off. You were wondering the whole time if it was his finger, it was taped. We don't know. I just think he is so important for the Duke game. They have to have him. He is the most important player on this team. I think him and Baycott, you know, you kind of toss up there between those two, but he was certainly off as a shooter last night. Adam, anything to add to that?
To RJ?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they need him to make some shots. I mean, he had become the second leading scorer on the team. You know, the way he had been playing over that stretch, he had jumped over Caleb and was second to only Armando on the team. I think he was 8th in the league in scoring. But I mean, he got beat up at Syracuse. You guys saw it. I mean, he got beat up. You know, he all the cliches. He put his body on the line to finish that game off and to take it right in the face from Judah Mintz. So, I mean, I'm obviously, hey, I grew up here. I'm fascinated by every Carolina Duke game. I know some people might say this doesn't have the same sort of sizzle as the ones last year or maybe the Zion years or whoever, but or the Zion year. But I'm really interested to see what happens Saturday night in Durham. And, you know, RJ played nice, had a nice game there last year when they closed out Coach K's farewell. And Caleb Love obviously has been sort of a Duke killer, you know, in some ways. And I'm super fascinated just to see how that goes because, you know, I don't know. I shouldn't jinx it. I should just stop predicting what I think is going to happen. I'm always wrong about it.
Yeah. We'll get into some Duke talk here after the break. Let's close out the Pitt section. Anything on the Capel situation? Let's just bring it up here. Might as well talk about it. It was kind of the big storyline out of here. God, there's so many comments. I can't always find the one that all right, well, Capel, you know, let's see here. There's that one. Well, so Jason Capel, Jeff Capel in his press conference after the game was kind of talking about how Jason has this weird relationship with UNC. You know, he said he got snubbed and kind of disrespected in 2009. And then last night he thought that UNC posted a graphic before the game with a 25, Creighton Lebo with his tongue out, thought it was maybe mocking him or trolling Jason Capel. Sherrell, first of all, do you have a relationship with Jason or Jeff through recruiting stuff? You're from Fayetteville. Aren't they from Fayetteville originally? Do you have any connection to those? Do you know those guys at all?
Not now. I did back in the day, but not now. But go ahead.
And obviously Jason was kind of fired up after the game, was fired up last year in the Dean Dome, kind of talking crap to people. It seems like he takes this game very, very serious and is looking for inspiration. What was your thoughts, kind of seeing it on Twitter, I imagine, Sherrell, kind of go down last night? Your take on that, if anything, we kind of do a quick 5 minutes on this and then move on.
Yeah, I was, you know, following you guys and kind of what you were saying and what you guys were reporting. And I think Capel deal is very complicated, as everyone knows. Played on the Final Four team, but also was on the worst team in Carolina history. So I think there's some feelings there. You take into account the season, Matt Doherty's first year. I'm sorry, Capel left that year before. But you take some of those things into account, what he saw, you know, from losing to Weber State and then going to the Final Four and then 8-20. It's not easy. It's a difficult thing to do. You know, him and Joe Forte, classically, I don't know if we're going too far down memory lane, let me know. But
let's go for it.
Him and Joe Forte did not get along. The statute of limitations on that is over. That team was a chemistry disaster. The team that won 18 straight. They got to number one, Matt Doherty's first year, and then collapsed down the stretch. So I think he feels like he was being a good Carolina player back then, you know, by standing up to Forte, and then it all collapsed on him his senior year when they went 8-20. and just, doesn't feel like he gets the respect he deserves for having the first, career triple-double in Carolina history. So I think it's a lot of that. And then also all these guys are super ultra competitive, and they just do whatever it takes to find something, whether it's imagined or, fair, Don talks about how fairy dust gets sprinkled on stuff. They find some random fairy dust for inspiration, to feel slighted so they can give it to their team. So I think this is one of those examples. Do I think he's really that mad? No. I think there's a little look at me Louie going on with that.
Love it.
He always wants people to look at him, I feel like. Ross, just give us your thoughts. You've had to ask a lot of questions and run the show here. Like, I mean, that got it got pretty weird last night, I thought. Go ahead. I mean, it was obviously a deflating loss for the Tar Heels in a game you would think that, they needed and all that. And then the fiasco of what happened after the game with what did Jeff say, that they've treated his brother shitty? He said something like that, like he's had to deal with a lot of crap or something. And interview Jason, but that got
first of all, this is like we weren't really we weren't in the locker room. We weren't back there seeing this all when it happened. So we're reading this guy's tweets. Mitchell Northam, who is like a stringer covering Pitt, he tweeted out, "This is what Jason Capel yelled outside the Pitt locker room. He goes, 'Y'all gonna disrespect me? All I did for this program, y'all gonna boo me? I held this shit together when Matt Doherty tore it apart. F that S.' So I mean, he was like, what a quote. First of all, like gold. And then Jeff in the press conference explained kind of why Jason feels disrespected. Yeah, I mean, I think it's good drama. And then we had Steve Kirshner, UNC SID, coming around, kind of trying to smooth things out. But he was a little, because I think he got in it a little bit with Jason, like telling Jason to get off the court, because Jason was going back and forth with fans. And I think Jason thought they booed him, which I think they were booing Jeff Capel and cheering Jason Capel. So a lot of mixed signals, especially with that graphic. The guy who made the graphics, I mean, I know him a little bit. I mean, he is 23, 24. I mean, he was 3 years old when Jason played at UNC. I think it was a coincidence, a very big coincidence, but that's why the 25 number, it was Creighton Lebo's number. It's just they rotate through walk-ons and players for the graphic and the 25 graphic. So it's a good kind of classic ACC weeknight drama. It was a kind of boring game in the first half, and it got turned up in the second half, and then there was just the almost the biggest storyline was what happened after. Kind of once you kind of weave through UNC's loss. So we'll end it there unless you all have anything to add. Adam, anything to add on your side?
I mean, Jason Capel, I have a lot of bad things to say about Jason Capel, but I probably shouldn't do it. I just
Did you cover him at all? Because
I was in school when he was in school.
But he's a little bit younger than you, right?
Yeah, he's 2 years younger than me.
Graduated 01.
I think his final season was 2002.
Okay.
I don't know. I think so. I think it was 98 to 2002.
Yeah, he was on the 8 and 20 team.
Right. He was a senior captain of the 8 and 20 team. Mm-hmm. And also, he was, as we've said, a starter. He was a 4-year starter. He was a starter. He was a very, very, very highly recruited guy. I don't know if some of that, I have to be confident, I guess, in this game. I don't know if some of that confidence, I have seen him when he was coaching at App State as the head coach. Sometimes I wasn't impressed with his in-game performance and some of his antics on the sideline. Not that he's there to impress me, but I don't know, man. He played 21 years ago, and someone sees a tweet 21 years ago, and somehow Creighton Lebo wearing number 25, 2 decades since he played, is a shot at him. I don't know. Somebody made a good point that they used Puff Johnson as the graphic the last time they played at Pitt. Was that some sort of allusion to Cam transferring? I mean, Puff's from what? Moon Township. Like, why not put him on there? His dad played at Pitt too.
It's all stupid, is what it is. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
It's completely stupid. And Ross was talking about the person who makes those. I think we heard that he grew up a Kentucky fan. So, yeah. I mean, it's just absurd. Sherrell and I obviously go back a certain ways. I mean, it is kind of unbelievable to think about how many people have come off that court in Chapel Hill screaming all sorts of ridiculous stuff. I will never forget, an NC State couple staff members talking about wine and cheese after they beat Carolina one Saturday in the Dean Dome. And I was thinking, like, what in the world? And when Austin Rivers hit the shot, it was absolute bedlam in those hallways. So I don't know, man.
Yeah. One thing, I mean,
Jason did walk off the court, as Ross said last year, calling Carolina soft. So, like,
yeah, what do you expect? You're gonna go to somebody's. Obviously you beat him, so you can talk as much as you want. True. But don't get upset when, like, maybe there's a troll, intentional or not, back at you. Like, what are we doing? Are we 12? What are we doing? This is college basketball. This is the ACC. Like, let's all grow up and stop being soft.
I would say one thing is that teams take tons of pride of beating Carolina in the Smith Center. Like, that's a big deal. I mean, it just kind of like Duke, I imagine too, like going in the Smith Center with Jordan in the rafters, Hansbrough in the rafters, and 15 to 20,000 Carolina blue clad fans cheering and shutting them up and winning. It's a big deal, and UNC gets they get some of the best shots there. And now Jeff Capel's beat Hubert twice now, back-to-back home games in the Smith Center, and I think 5 of the last 6, and obviously both games this season. So this Pitt is becoming a little bit of a rivalry in some sense, with some bad blood there. It's very interesting. We're going to take a break here and get into Duke, the Duke preview portion. Get your Duke questions ready. Anything you want to ask about UNC heading into Duke or Duke or matchups or whatever. Before we go to break, I want to ask Sherrell this. The last play to Caleb, do you call that foul there? I mean, he hit his hand. It's after the ball leaves his hand. I always think, like, once the ball is out, like, how much is that really a foul? Hit him on the follow through. What do you think about that play?
Yeah, if it's a foul with 5 minutes left, it should be a foul with no seconds left. If the shot was off, I guess the whole thing comes down to whether or not the ball was out of his hands, and I don't know how all that would have been adjudicated. But let's just be consistent. If it's a foul earlier in the game, it should be a foul regardless of time, score, and place. That's all I want. It's just, I think, consistency. So if I was a referee, I probably wouldn't have called it, to be honest. But hopefully, if I was a referee, I wouldn't have called the one at 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whenever else it happened.
Adam?
When Leaky was there on the side for the sideline out of bounds, I was having Madison Square Garden flashbacks, obviously, to the end of the Ohio State or end of regulation against Ohio State when it was the Leaky lob across the court to Pete. And I was wondering if that was a similar call because they had, you guys, I'm sure remember, Ross was there. They had Armando and Caleb up top that day too in New York, where Armando said we're supposed to, like, play dumb, be two dummies so that people would look up there and we'd throw it over to Pete in the corner. But both Armando and Pete said, we asked them after the game, that it wasn't the same play. I don't know if it was designed to go to Caleb. I don't think
Caleb said it was Caleb said it was a similar design when I talked to him.
It was similar, but I don't know if Caleb was supposed to end up with the ball, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think Caleb was the second option.
Okay.
Is what he said, what he told us. I don't know.
Who was the first option?
I think it was kind of a Pete Nance situation is what I took from it. I don't know. It all runs together. All right, let's take a break here. Get your Duke questions ready. We'll come back. We'll preview the Duke game Saturday night at 6:30 on ESPN and Cameron Indoor Stadium. First one, talking about Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-shirt.com, your one-stop shop for all your UNC apparel, tailgating, office, home needs on Franklin Street and online at JohnnyT-shirt.com. Remember, all Inside Carolina subscribers get 10% off with the promo code found on the premium message boards. Get you a sweatshirt, get you hats, jerseys. It's baseball season coming up here, basketball season. Great place to get all your shopping done for birthdays, special events. Johnny T-Shirt, JohnnyT-shirt.com, independent, privately owned company. Support them. If you're going to get UNC stuff, make sure you make it Johnny T-Shirt. Tell them Inside Carolina sent you. Remember to use that 10% off discount code. Take a quick break. We'll be right back with more On the Beat podcast with Inside Carolina. All right, we are back. Remember, guys, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate all the live viewers here on YouTube. We go live here. A lot of Inside Carolina podcasts now are going live. Do you all do Coast to Coast Live, Sherrell?
We don't. We haven't tried it yet. Yep.
Yeah, and we haven't done it on the Scoop, but I know the post games have been live with Dewey and Tommy. And yeah, Tommy seems to like the live show. I think they're great interaction. We'll get some questions going here. We have 140 people watching. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to YouTube so you know when we go live. Bring you all this great podcast content. Hopefully, all the tech is good. I try to figure out the overlays and switch it to a weird screen. It's a little more complicated than you would think. All right, Duke. Let's get some general thoughts, quick general thoughts from both of y'all. Then we'll take some questions. I'll go and lead. It's not as hyped up. Both teams are unranked. You're coming off the Duke games last year, which was the Final Four game. I mean, you don't get much bigger than that. And then obviously the Coach K final game in Cameron Indoor Stadium with 90-something alumni there, and UNC kind of runs away with it. I mean, that's been the craziest atmosphere and kind of the most built-up game I've ever been to outside of a Final Four. So you're coming off these two massive games, and now it's kind of back to, February, Saturday night on ESPN. Adam, your initial thoughts on this game, and then we'll go to Sherrell.
Hubert Davis versus John Shire round 1. I guess it doesn't have the same pop as Dean against a younger Mike Kruzewski. No, I mean, I'm excited for it, honestly. I mean, obviously it's a completely different Duke team, Duke roster than the same team that UNC cut the heart out of to start March last year, and then in the Final Four in New Orleans. Jeremy Roach, I guess, is the only holdover, right? I mean, I think everyone else is gone. I think Roach is
the only returning player.
I could be wrong about. I should have their roster in front of me, but I mean,
I believe it.
That's just crazy. That's right. That's correct.
Yeah, and I mean, I was reading somebody said, who do we think is the biggest matchup nightmare? I mean, what does UNC do with Kyle Filipowski? I don't think he's like Banchero last year, where Carolina completely fumbled that in the first game in Chapel Hill, and they stuck Armando on Banchero because they didn't think Brady could guard Banchero. And that blew up in Carolina's face because Armando got in foul trouble.
We'll get to matchups in a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. All right, Sherrell, your general take on this game. Like, how you feel about this game going into it here on Thursday night?
I think Carolina has to have its best performance of the season. Maybe Alabama-like, even though that was a loss. I think it has to come out as fired up as it has the whole season, because even though we all know it's not true, everyone in that stadium is going to think that a win on Saturday for Duke will redeem what happened last year, even though it won't. That's the mindset of all the fans and the team and all the coaches going in. It is a singular focus, I would imagine, that not only did UNC ruin Coach K's last game, but they ended their season last year. And this is the first time they played since then. So as much of a raging inferno that it always is, I think it's going to be that by several degrees, despite the fact that neither team is nationally ranked or in the top 10 or really competing for the ACC championship at this point. So that's what I would say. UNC is going to have their best game of the year to come out of there with a win.
Do you feel any hype for this game right now?
Not outside of the inside Carolina bubble. I don't think so.
Yeah.
It feels like it's something that everyone does every year because they're supposed to, because it's Duke Carolina. But I don't think anyone feels any particular way about these two teams nationally.
Yeah, and I think it's, this is an opportunity for both teams too. I mean, both teams need wins to kind of improve their seeding, in the ACC tournament and NCAA tournament. I mean, Greg wrote a column about UNC being on the bubble. So this is a chance for both teams to get a pretty solid win and propel themselves to, the latter half of the schedule. Man, I think you're right, Adam, with the only returning player, Jeremy Roach. That's crazy. Think how much experience UNC is bringing into this game. I mean, Leaky Black's played 4 times there.
Yeah.
He'll play his 5th game in Cameron. I don't know how much he played as a freshman, but he's been there. He'll be there 5 times. Armando's played. This will be his 4th game. Caleb and RJ both played twice. And obviously Pete Nance has not played in the Duke Carolina Rivalry game, but you have tons of experience. And compared to only Jeremy Roach, so that is an interesting dichotomy there. So let's go to the matchups.
Yeah, Leaky was in the Zion Shoe game. He didn't play, but he was there for that game, which tells you how long he's been around.
That seems like a lifetime ago. Are we sure?
Luke's senior year?
Yeah, that was the Kobe White, Nasir Little that year, that
Cam
season.
Johnson.
UNC
Luke
won
went
2 out
crazy
of
when
3.
Zion went out. I think he had
Yeah.
30-some points, right?
Yeah, him and Cam Johnson both had double doubles, and yeah. So
Yeah.
that tells you how long Leaky's been around.
I can't believe that. God.
Once that shoe exploded and they had to put someone else on Luke, he went off. He was like, all right, I don't have to worry about Zion anymore. Because that was kind of the scary matchup. Like you have, Luke from Huntersville, North Carolina, guarding this freak Zion guy who was jumping out of the gym.
The image of Obama there on the baseline saying his shoe exploded or his shoe blew up. Remember that? My word. What a night.
Yeah. Okay, so let's pull up this question here. Weirdly worded here, but I think it's the biggest nightmare matchup. Let's get some matchup talk here. Does Ryan Young guard Baycott? I haven't watched Duke too much. I know Adam's a big hoops guys. Every weeknight watching ACC sports. Adam, you started up there. You think Ryan Young's on Baycott? I mean, do you think Pete Nance is on Filipowski? What kind of matchups do you kind of see happening here that of our concern for UNC or favor UNC?
Well, what they've started doing, Ross, is Duke has gotten Derek Lively, who, as we know, was ACC preseason rookie of the year and the highest rated NBA prospect in the league. Maybe the highest rated American prospect behind Victor Wembanyama. I can't say his name. I'm sorry. He's back in the lineup. So when you ask about Ryan Young, they've been bringing Ryan Young off the bench to sort of, they've been bringing the experienced guys off the bench to sort of, he's been banging. What do you do with Filipowski? He's their best player. He's super productive. He plays hard. He's super active. I mean, he plays more physical and aggressive than Pete Nance does. Although from a size matchup, you would put 6'11", 6'10" Pete Nance on 6'10", 6'11", 7-foot Kyle Filipowski all day long. I would assume you would have Armando on 7-foot Derek Lively. I think another issue for Carolina from a Carolina perspective is who guards Jeremy Roach, which would soon be Caleb Love. They've had a couple standoffs here in this series, and they've traded some barbs on Twitter too. I think Caleb's freshman year, after Caleb had a big game at Duke during the pandemic. You would hope if you're UNC that Roach doesn't get Love in foul trouble if Love is guarding him. I don't know what you do with Leaky. I guess you put him on Mitchell, who's sort of a Leaky type player for Duke. He's a lefty, kind of junkyard dog, garbage man, super athletic, crashes the boards. But I was talking about Caleb. How would you guys, if you guys were Caleb Love and you hit one of the most famous shots in UNC history over Mark Williams in the Final Four? I just wonder how like an Armando or a Caleb or an RJ, how this game lives in their head. You know what I mean? Like you've thought about it for so long, or it's been there for so long. Do you think about it every day? What do you think, Sherrell? It's a kind of a very weird question for me to ask, but it just came to my mind. For Kyle Filipowski, he's never played Carolina, but for Caleb Love, he's, his picture is framed up in all these UNC fans' house. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Caleb has kind of been the Duke killer in recent years. Sherrell, you want to answer that and kind of your take on some of the matchups that are standing out to you?
I think that's why the worry is about them coming out not as fired up as possible, because it's like you kind of reached a mountaintop. Like it doesn't get any bigger than beating Coach K in his last game and then beating him in the Final Four in the first ever matchup in the NCAA tournament. Like it just doesn't get any bigger than that. So the hope is that they're confident but not overconfident, because I could see how they would be overconfident considering how the last 2 games played out. And Caleb obviously doesn't have a real confidence problem when it comes to shooting, so I think he'll be himself. And I think he'll relish the challenge. Maybe that's what he needs to kind of get himself going. He's played really well the last 2 games. I think he's like 45% from 3 the last 2 games. So maybe he's starting to build. The story about Marquise Williams when he played quarterback was always that he was awful in practice, but then when the game started and he got hit, it kind of woke him up. So maybe this Duke game is kind of what Caleb needs to get him going. As from a matchup perspective, I would say the same thing that I said last year with Banchero is that, with Brady, you say, good luck, young man. We admire your sacrifice. Do the best you can with Filipowski. You do the same thing with that with Nance with Filipowski. Um, while he's a different player from Bankero, I do think Nance has the length that could bother him some. But you'd much rather Filipowski go for 25 or 30 than lose to Grandison or to Jeremy Roach or to Mark Mitchell. I think that's the situation kind of where UNC is at. Let Filipowski get his, especially if it's on the block, and then kind of choke off everything else. I think when it comes to Baycott and potentially Lively doesn't really have an offensive game yet, so to speak. So that's not going to be a huge challenge for Armando. So that's the way I look at the front court. Now Roach is going to be a problem for UNC. Last year, I think Caleb spent more time on Trevor Keels than he did Jeremy Roach, and Roach has a bit of a size advantage on RJ Davis. He took advantage of it, especially in that last game in Cameron. I think we all forget because Carolina won, but Roach had a pretty good game. So I think he's the key to everything. If they can limit him and keep him from going for 20, hitting a few threes, I think they have a chance to win, a really good chance to win the game. But if Roach starts to play well, then that opens things up for Filipowski and some of the other guys. So I would say, really, for me, the key is stopping Roach.
And he's been playing better. He dealt with the toe injury that kept him out for a while. He didn't play for a while. And he's come back and he's played, I think, 2 or 3 games. And he had a nice game against Wake the other night, Jeremy Roach, I mean. And you make a great point about last year. And, we think about what Leaky sort of erased A.J. Griffin in Durham and in New Orleans. I mean, he really took him out of the game. And you're right. They'd had Love on Keels, similar body types. And RJ had his troubles with Jeremy Roach, and Brady had his troubles with Paulo Banchero, like the rest of the NBA is having right now.
So who do you put Leaky on? Who do you put Leaky on? What'd y'all say on that one?
Actually, I might put him on Proctor, to be honest, and kind of figure out where Love goes. Maybe Love can start on Mitchell just to see, because Mitchell's he's not a terrible shooter, but he's not great either. So because Proctor is one of those guys who I've seen as I watched them the last couple of times. Once he gets some momentum, he can really do some things. But it seems like if he doesn't have a great start, then he has the ability to vanish pretty quickly. So it might be a situation where if one of those two guys gets hot, they switch Leaky off onto whoever is hot, and Caleb guards the other one. The only thing is that Mitchell is, I think he's 6'8" or 6'9", and Caleb's 6'3.5", 6'4", so that could be an issue.
Talking about Proctor, it always makes me think about some of our buddies, Ross and our buddies that cover Duke, have said that in the preseason when Duke has those days where they it's one of their selling points for recruits when they invite all those NBA scouts and general managers to come to practice for a couple days and sort of like watch training camp and get to know these guys. They have said, our buddies have said, they left raving about Tyrese Proctor and raving about Lively and sort of like on Filipowski. And, Proctor has not been that type of guy this season, even though he obviously has a ton of potential. And Lively has been at times a huge disappointment. I mean, I think his numbers of dunks to buckets, I think he's been very, very much dependent on those lob dunks to score. I know he did hit a couple of 3 maybe at Georgia Tech the other day, but it's just kind of interesting to think back to what September or October, and some of our friends were just like, "Look, Tyrese Proctor sounds like a problem." He sounds like a lottery pick, and Lively sounds like the next Marvin Bagley, and then you watch them play a game, and it's like not what these NBA geniuses had thought, at least when they came to see him early on.
Man, Derek Lively's averaging 4.4 points a game. I mean, he has been. I mean, and he was preseason ACC Rookie of the Year, right? Freshman year.
Have you seen him play? I mean,
I've seen them a little bit. I haven't watched them too much, so kind of getting to know the roster as we go here.
And I'll say too, with Proctor, Carolina has a habit of letting guards who maybe aren't the best shooting or haven't shown offensive prowess get going, all the way back to Portland, to Iowa State, to Virginia Tech, to Indiana, to Cummings the other night. There seems like there's always a guy you're like, he's going for 21, really? So there's a couple of players on the Duke roster. Proctor might be the top of that list of like, if we look back Saturday night and wonder why did UNC not win, just because maybe Proctor has one of those nights.
Yeah, guys, get any questions you have for Adam or Sherrell here as we wrap up? I'll say this: I told Adam this last night. No one on this Duke roster lineup really scares me, if I, from a UNC perspective. Like, I feel like usually there's a Duke player, or at least two Duke players that are kind of scary recently because they've been recruiting so well. Like Banchero was definitely one of those guys. Zion, RJ Barrett. They've had some really good guards. They had some big men that just jump out of the gym athletes and first round picks that you're like, man, how is Luke May going to guard this guy? Like, who is going to match up with this, 6'11" guy who is freakishly athletic? And no one on this roster for Duke really scares me. I know Filipowski's good. He might be the one guy, but there is no one who's just like going off. Like, I don't think Filipowski's, he'll be a first round pick, right? But he won't be like a, he might be a lottery type guy, but that's my perspective.
First team all ACC player this year, yeah.
I mean, he's good, but he doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't scare me. Like, none of the guards really scare me. I don't know. That's just how I feel in this game. And then you look at UNC's experience and what they've done in the past year. And Armando Bacot can give you 20 and 15, maybe 25 and 18. He can have huge games. And so I think I think UNC kind of has on paper what looks like the advantage here. I think the spread I think Duke will probably be favored, I imagine, just because they're at home. But that's just my take, kind of a 10,000 foot view of it. But yeah, I mean, it's guys got Danny Trejo coming in. Yeah, I mean, they do let fans down. Like you've seen this team be so good in the past, and just they haven't played that way like they did last year. Like against Duke last year, they played the whole second half, the Iron Five. RJ was so good. Brady, Caleb, like they were just so dominant. We just haven't seen them play that level yet.
That's another thing. Even in that game, I think people forget, it was almost close to getting away from Carolina. I think they were down. It was either 43-34 or 41-34 in the second half. And, RJ made a couple of big plays and they were able to get back into it. But it's just that inconsistency has been there. And it just, I can't imagine being the coach of this team and not knowing on any given night or any given half or even any given, 4-minute stretch between media timeouts, what you're going to get. Especially, again, these five starters have almost 500 career starts combined. So if there's any game that UNC's experience would kind of come to the fore, you would hope that it would be Saturday against a team that is a lot of disparate parts trying to still work together and fresh and new. But we'll see.
Question here from Garrett Chapman. How does Duke try to stop UNC? Will they double Bacot? What kind of things do you think Duke will try to do to slow UNC down? Different coach. This is not going to be a Coach K, Coach team. You have different philosophies here, so it just needs some different types of things that Duke does. Your take on that, Adam? Anything comes to mind?
Shout out Garrett earlier for saying lively is not lively. You got me on that one. My nerd was enjoying the nerd inside me was enjoying that. You know what? I will get to that question, but I was thinking about earlier as Sherrell rolled off the credentials of how experienced these guys are. You know what is always interesting to see when UNC goes over to Duke and plays is the reaction of a guy who hasn't played in the game before. Like, I will never forget Justin Jackson as a freshman looking like he wanted to be anywhere else on that court at Cameron Indoor Stadium. I mean, just, was turtling, just like shriveling up. Like when you bring DeMarco Dunn and Seth Trimble and T. Nick, what is Tyler Nichols' reception going to be like?
You won't be scared.
No, well, that's what Hubert said at Syracuse. He's not.
At Syracuse, yeah.
Jalen Washington, what if God bless him, what if he trips and falls or something? They'll never let him forget it.
The big thing is that unlike most stadiums, the fans are right on you. I mean, the students are right on you. You've seen the pictures, they can reach out and touch you. That is the difference, is that there's a row 10 deep of students that are right on you. And that is what's different. I mean, UNC, Smiths are so spread out, so wide. Like, a fan is so far away from the action, Whereas this, you have a wall of fans right on you. That's what makes it intimidating.
And obviously we've got such a great seat there. I mean, when someone like Brady Manick gives a bang bang MFer, there's no mistaking it. Even he does it 3 feet from where you are, you're like, okay, yeah, I know what Brady said there. So yeah, we'll see what kind of dog T. Nick has got in him. But to go back to Garrett's question, yeah, I think every team in the ACC is going to double Armando to some degree. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe they'll let him go one-on-one against somebody. But he could put some fouls on Lively, and he can certainly put some fouls on Filipowski. But they've got plenty of depth. I mean, Ryan Young is a banger. What's the Pete Nance Ryan Young dynamic like? They played at Northwestern the last couple of years together.
Did they play 4 years together?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think they're
pretty close.
He's shooting like 73% from the field or something. So don't discount him either when he comes into the game. Like he's
solid, man.
Yeah, he doesn't look like
hard.
A guy who's going to come in and get 20 points, but he could easily do it. So
he's shooting 70. You're right, 72.2% from the field, 82.6% from the free throw. I mean, everything he shoots is around the basket. He's got an old school player, man. I mean, he'll just do a little move and he's right there. He's got a big body. I mean, he's not like this guy's not a Chippendale. He's not taking off a shirt for anybody. He's a big body guy. But it's effective. It's like the big dudes at the Y.
The other thing too is we don't think he's going to play, but Dariq Whitehead is kind of out there too. He's been injured. He's missed the last 2 games, I believe. I think it's unlikely that he'll play, but they're not saying it's just kind of like he's out. They're taking it game by game. But if he plays, that's another super talented player that Duke has on the roster to deploy.
Yeah, arguably their most talented guy. Arguably, I mean, obviously Lively's talented, but yeah, it's a great point, Sherrell. I mean, they get him out there. I think who Leaky's starting. If Whitehead plays
on doubling Baycott. I mean, we mentioned this earlier, but it's just like it's easy to double Baycott when you don't have any guys hitting 3-point shots. Like you don't have to worry about a Leaky. You pull the defender off Leaky to double down on Baycott. That's an easy defensive move. Sherrell, as we get out of here, have you ever covered a game at Cameron?
Not a college game. The McDonald's All-American game was their Jawad year in 2001, so I was there for that.
What was that game?
The McDonald's All-American game was in Cameron in 2001, Jawad's year, so I was there for that, but never a Carolina Duke game.
God, you've been doing this for a while, 2001.
I was in college,
Did you work with Inside Carolina in college?
In a shadow way, let's put it that way. I had designs on working at Carolina, and they frowned upon those things at that time, so I had to come out with a pen name and do a whole bunch of stuff underground.
Lord.
In a shadow way. That's a whole different podcast. That's a whole different podcast.
Expect to hear that.
Inside Carolina. All right, as we get out here, Adam, your favorite memory, anything that stands out about covering a game at Duke?
Oh my God.
How many have you covered? Have you covered 20, 30, 40?
I mean, I used to cover 40. A ton of Duke games anyway. Oh my Lord.
That's right. How many Carolina Duke games at Duke?
Well, the first thing I'm not going to answer the question correctly. Is the first thing I thought was Dennis Smith dunk after the buzzer when State beat him a couple of years ago. I mean, we were both there the night Zion split his shoe. I was there that time that Boeheim went crazy and ripped his jacket off and ran out on the court when it was like a block charge call on like CJ Fair, maybe.
Talking about Carolina Duke games, though.
He went insane. Carolina Duke game. Okay. The Hansborough class that went 4-0 at Duke, and Tyler walks out of there with four held up above his head, and obviously Danny Green teabagging Greg Paula.
Hansborough's freshman year there, I thought that's probably one of the more memorable ones. Did you cover that one? Hansborough's freshman year, Bobby Frazier.
I'm sure I did. It's not coming to mind here, but
that was an unbelievable game. When they beat Reddick, they ruined Reddick and Sheldon Williams senior night.
Yes. Yeah, I was there for that one. I was there. Yeah. Thank you. I was there for that one.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of good ones. Obviously, last year was unbelievable. The Zion shoe game. I'm usually I've been on the row a bunch, but I'm usually I play second fiddle to Greg, and now I play second fiddle to Adam. So I'm in the back room, in the media room, watching on TV. But I don't mind. I don't complain. It's cool to be in there. It's just cool to be in there. You're in there for 2 hours before. You're hanging out. Everyone's there. So you're talking to all the TV guys, radio guys. Every writer's there. So you're kind of hanging out, watching celebrities roll in. Spike Lee, rappers whose names I don't know.
Ken Griffey
Barack
Jr. was
Obama,
there.
Ken Griffey Jr.,
Scottie Pippen,
Peyton Manning, Tony Romo. Like, you're just seeing all these people come in. That's always cool. You're kind of hanging out. ESPN's right there. Scott Van Pelt's right there. So that's always been cool. And last year was awesome. I was back in the extended media room, wherever they had it while they were renovating the media room. I was watching there. It was like me and like 3 or 4 like TV ladies just like breaking it down. But it's awesome. It's the best place to cover it. I mean, it is an unbelievable atmosphere. No disrespect to, it's way better than UNC's. So anything else, guys? Sherrell, we really appreciate you coming in. Otherwise, it'd be just me and Adam talking for 60 minutes. We got John. Shout out to John. I think he's traveling, and Tommy got sick last minute. So we appreciate it, Sherrell.
Yeah,
no problem. I want to add one thing to look out for. Okay. I used to track it every year, and I guess I need to pull it back up. But pretty much Carolina gets up by 10 in every single game at Cameron at some point, dating back like almost 12 years. I think there's only been twice where they haven't been up double digits at some point. So we'll see if that happens. It is a trend that for some reason always happens, even those teams in the 2015s and 2014s. The Justin Jackson game where you said he looked frightened. That was a game where Tokido was having dunks, and somehow they got up like 11 in the second half and still lost. But so just look for that. Carolina usually builds a lead in Cameron, and then the lead usually goes away, and they have to try to find a way to win, between the under 4.
I think it's a great point. And going back to what you said last year about that game tiptoed toward territory where they couldn't get it back a couple of times late first half, I feel like early second half, if I'm remembering correctly. I think there's so much intensity. And these guys are so wired, and the games end up being so up and down that the leads can grow and the leads can shrink. I think that's one of the things that you see. I think, you see those just runs like that in this game. And I also have always thought it was an interesting thing with Carolina Duke, particularly the first game of the season, if it's at Cameron, is who gets gassed quickly. Someone, just because you're so freaking hyped up. You think about Wendell Carter Jr., and Jahlil Okafor. I remember just sucking wind because they're so freaking hyped up, and 3 minutes in, you're gassed. So I think it's a good point, Sherrell, and I'm looking forward to it. I was thinking about that night that they won the Zion shoe game. I remember going down to the dungeon that serves as the visiting team locker room there, and the first person I talked to was Cam Johnson, and he mentioned Obama, and he was just like, he's like one of the most famous people in the world, and he was just you're talking to us, like, it was just unforgettable. These things can turn out unforgettable sometimes. So go ahead, Ross. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it is like there's so much hype and like energy, and it's so overwhelming. The players, it's got to be kind of so nerve-wracking for those first couple minutes before you get settled down. And y'all both kind of said that in one way or another. So that's important. Like, those first couple minutes have to be so weird for everybody involved until it kind of gets settled down and get in the flow of the game, and then it kind of gets into a rhythm. All right, let's get out of here with some score predictions. I feel like Sherrell doesn't like doing these.
I'll let y'all go first.
But I don't really like either. They asked me this on the radio. I'll start. I'll go. I think UNC's going to win. I'll go 71-67 Heels. Okay, I think it's going to be close. I think the close games are fun, man. It's intense. What you got, Adam?
I'm terrible at these, as you guys know. I think I was wrong in football season very regularly, especially when they would put me on the spot on the radio. But I will say, in a nod to what happened in New Orleans, 81-77. I don't know if anybody remembers that score. Tar Heels on Saturday night in Cameron Indoor.
Why do you think they win?
I don't know. I think they like playing Duke. I think they like playing at Cameron. I mean, it's a shooter's gym. I think there's something about it that they relish. Now, sure, Duke came in to the Dean Dome last year and beat them pretty badly, but I just think there's something there that gets them going. Could be totally wrong about it, but I think they sort of like the challenge of it. And I don't know. Coming into this week, I was telling people I think Carolina will beat Pitt and Duke and then lose at Wake. for whatever reason. So who knows? I'll stick by them beating Duke, see if I can call that one correctly.
Sherrell, what do you have?
I feel like you have to do the opposite of what you think Carolina is going to do. So, like, you thought they were going to win against Pittsburgh and they lost. You think they're going to win on Saturday. So I'm going to go that they lose. What reason have they given us to think that they this season, within the last 4.5 months, what reason have they given to us to make us think they can go into Cameron and win?
Well, I mean, I think the win at Syracuse was pretty big. I think they've shown a little bit of. Well, I guess Syracuse is really the only big road win. But
as I'm saying,
Duke
like,
hasn't lost at home this season.
Yeah. It's to me, it's kind of hope at this point. Maybe they can get it done, but I don't see anything basketball wise that says this team this season, as presently constructed and playing, is going to go into Cameron and win. So I'll say Duke 78, Carolina 74.
Okay, there you have it, guys. We appreciate you watching on YouTube Live, watching later on YouTube, and listening wherever you get your podcast. Shout out to Sherrell stepping in. We always appreciate Sherrell's perspective. I think he brings something unique to the conversation. Appreciate Adam. Guys, rate, review, and subscribe, and check out Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com.